Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Corona-19 Virtual Information Center. My name is Pam Yankulov, and I'm the Director of Research at the Traeger Institute. Today, our information session title is Acupuncture and COVID-19, Self-Care and Stress Relief for Healthcare Providers and Caregivers. Before we begin with our guest speakers today, we're going to go through some of these PowerPoint slides. We ask that you go on and type in your county into the chat. It gives us an understanding of who is with us and what counties that we're covering. Let's see the next slide. And what we're going to do is there anything else? I think this is it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to begin with our Dr. Furman COVID-19 status report. Dr. Furman is with us, and maybe she could begin with the status report.
Yes, I just needed to get the unmute going. So welcome everybody and happy fall. We haven't had one of these and since we've had Labor Day. So Labor Day is official start of fall. So it's cool outside, which is a little bit nice. I want to give everybody an update on the nursing homes. There is a change now where all the staff is getting tested twice a week if the positivity rate in the area of the nursing home is more than 10%. But so we were getting tested twice a week last week, but now this week, the positivity rate is less than 10% in Jefferson County. It's between 5 and 10%. So we just get tested once a week. If it falls below 5%, then we'll get tested once a month. So that's good news that we've fallen below 10%.
Yeah.
So just in Jefferson County, the cases in Jefferson County is now 15,153, and the deaths are 314. In the whole state of Kentucky, we have 60,922 cases and 1,103 deaths. So Kentucky has gone over the 1,000 mark of people who have died from COVID. So we just want to keep all those families in our thoughts. And then the big thing, since it's fall and it's a flu season, you know, everybody should be getting their flu shot. And so at the Traeger Institute, we're giving the flu shots during the patient's appointments. But if a patient wants to call and schedule a flu shot, we're getting those scheduled as nurse visits, and we're doing them every Monday through Thursday from 2 to 4, Tuesday all day, and Thursday from 10 to noon. So just call and schedule your flu shot appointment, or go to your provider, go to your primary care provider and make sure you get your flu shot. So schools, now are starting this month. A lot more of them are starting more, it all started pretty much non-traditional instruction, online classes, but like tomorrow, Oldham County, the elementary schools are going to go in person. And then next week, a lot of the high schools and a lot of the schools in Kentucky are starting to do a hybrid, some in person, some at, online, depending on half the school is in person, half the school's online. So just keep all of our, a lot of our patients and a lot of our friends and people are affiliated with the school system. It's very stressful. All this new changing is very stressful for people. Just anything new is stressful. And so we're going to have more cases because more people are going to be exposed. And so, just kind of show compassion to everybody because it's another whole adventure. And then the other big thing is don't forget to vote, have a voting plan because the elections are about 50 days away. And so you can request a ballot for the state of Kentucky, and each different district is sending them out different times, but most of them are sending them out in September, the ballots. So go ahead and request your ballot if you want to do that. And I think that's really all I had right now. And so if anybody has any questions, I'll be available. But everybody just please remember to wear your mask, stay 6 feet away, wash your hands continuously, and just be safe. And really, you can get back to some normal activities if you just kind of follow those instructions. So looking forward to hearing from Andrea and Colby today.
Thank you so much, Christian. Yeah, good advice for all of us to follow, and be compassionate with one another, I think is a great message. All right, so I think we're going to go on and start with our guest speakers now. We are excited to welcome guest speakers, Dr. Colby Helton and Andrea Helton. They're acupuncture providers from AcuBalance, Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine. They will discuss ways acupuncture can help COVID-19 related stress, particularly for healthcare providers and caregivers. And this conversation is going to explore a wide range of at-home and community resources for self-care and stress relief for individuals experiencing concerns and fears related to health, safety, and uncertainty. So Dr. Helton is one of the few practitioners in Kentucky with doctoral level training in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. He earned his master's and doctorate of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine from the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine in San Diego, California. And he maintains his licensure in Kentucky for acupuncture. Andrea Helton graduated with an MS in acupuncture and Oriental medicine from South Baylor University in 2012. Upon graduation, she received the Clinic Award for Outstanding Services to Patients and had the honor of giving the commencement speech for her class. She also maintains licensure in Kentucky for acupuncture and is an active member of the Kentucky State Acupuncture Association. And we are glad to welcome you guys to our COVID-19 session. And Andrea and Colby are also providing acupuncture sessions at our clinic as well at the Traeger at the Optimal Aging Clinic. So maybe also we can make sure that we let everybody know when you're also going to be with us. All right, so I'm going to go on and get it over to you. And thank you guys.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much for having us. I'm just going to get my screen shared here. And if I've done this right, you should be able to.
We can see.
Perfect. All righty. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Dr. Pam. I hope you are doing well. And thank you everybody for tuning in today. I think this is a really important subject, especially now that we've kind of been in the battle against COVID now for the better part of a year. So yeah, today we're going to talk about some stress, some self-care, a little bit about acupuncture, and then specifically in reference to those on our front lines and those who are caring for others right now. As we know, but maybe need a little reminder about, we cannot give from an empty cup. And we need to give these workers all the support that they can possibly get right now. So over the next little while, I'm going to start out by talking about kind of the nature of what our healthcare workers and caregivers are facing right now. You know, how these individuals can better care for themselves and fill their own cups. And then Dr. Colby is going to take over and talk more specifically about acupuncture and how it can help healthcare workers and caregivers to prevent burnout. And then he's also going to discuss some of the safety of acupuncture during COVID to hopefully ease any potential concerns or apprehensions about seeking acupuncture care right now. And then hopefully that'll leave plenty of time to open it up for questions, because we usually have lots of questions, which is fantastic. So in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, we've seen a significant increase in anxiety and depression and stress amongst healthcare providers and caregivers. One of the main reasons behind this is that, you know, these workers are fighting COVID on two fronts. You know, not only are they dealing with COVID the same way we all are, you know, trying to be safe at work and healthy at home, you know, just being responsible and making good decisions, but they've got the added responsibility of fighting COVID during their working hours while also trying not to bring it home again. You know, as a result, our frontline workers and caregivers, you know, they never really have an opportunity just to kind of check out and reset, making self-care very difficult. So we really need to do everything we can, you know, looking at, you know, the role of, you know, kind of more integrative, you know, holistic healthcare providers. Like, we're really here as a supportive role for our frontline workers, and just to kind of help assure that they're getting the proper care they need, or we will face an unprecedented burnout across the country. You know, we see people at risk of developing, you know, maladaptive coping mechanisms, and even to a certain extent, certain psychological crises, especially in our emergency room healthcare providers. Of course, there are always barriers to self-care, especially amongst healthcare workers. So first, I know lots of us here are work in healthcare, caregiving professions, and a lot of us here have this really strong, like, others first mentality. You know, it's ingrained into our training and likely just ingrained into our constitution. You know, it's why we do what we do. But this is actually why A lot of healthcare workers are actually kind of becoming a little bit resistant to being called, we call like healthcare heroes. I know it's a term that we see a lot on social media and a lot on, our governor's address, because this kind of hero archetype doesn't really allow for mistakes or for weakness. So it kind of instills this complex on a lot of healthcare workers that they can't take a moment to breathe or rest or rejuvenate. Now, obviously, this is not to say that our frontline workers aren't heroic. They absolutely are. But we all have to kind of help manage our expectations so we can all do our best for ourselves and for each other. I follow and am kind of like loosely connected with several of kind of like the more influential like social media emergency doctors, and a lot of them have talked a lot about, we really appreciate being called heroes, but it's kind of putting us into this complex where we just like can't take care of ourselves. And then lastly, a lot of our healthcare providers, frontline workers and caregivers simply don't have access or don't know what kind of self-care therapies are available to them. So we are here to remedy that. So in order to make, self-care a legitimate part of a person's healthcare regimen, we first need to help these people instill a sense of like body and mind awareness, so we can attune ourselves to the needs of both our mind and bodies. So we need to learn how to kind of decode our body's language to be able to discern, subtle cues when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we're tired, or when we just need to check in and take a really deep breath. And then once we figure that out, we can implement more attitudes and behaviors at work and at home that will encourage like real and authentic self-care. So the first thing we need to do, and honestly, this can be for any of us right now who are facing additional stress, because who's not facing additional stress right now? And that's just to kind of like take a moment to really set a conscious intention that you're actually open to listening to your body's subtle cues, how much you need to eat, what you're actually craving. Are you really craving a piece of chocolate, or are you craving, is your body deficient in a certain type of vitamin? When you need to take a drink of water, how many hours of sleep that you really need that can fit into your schedule, and then just more healthier methods of coping and decompressing. You have to believe that this is possible to do while you're on the clock. I know it's really hard when you're working in a really fast-paced, really high-stress environment, especially if anyone's working in an emergency room, type situation. But these little check-ins and kind of self-pacing protocols, they only take a few seconds to do. It's just kind of like setting that intention, reminding yourself to make it part of your daily regimen. And this all has to do with kind of just the practice of mindfulness at work. And mindfulness is really just having, a direct experience with yourself in the present moment. That's really all there is to it. And so while you're at work, it's checking in with yourself as often as you can spare. Maybe keeping a handful of nuts or dried fruit nearby. Just taking a sip of water as you're running, if you're making rounds or running in between patients, just a quick sip from a water bottle or from a water fountain, or even just kind of stepping into a closet or empty room for 30 seconds and just doing some breath counting, between patients or tasks. Even like getting out of the fluorescent lights for a few minutes and just kind of giving your eyes a break. Even better if you can step outside, but I know that's not always possible right now. Taking screen breaks from electronics, super important. Even if that means, again, just kind of closing your eyes and covering them with your hands for 10 to 30 seconds every few hours. Again, stepping outside if you can, just kind of getting away from all of the electronic screen light. Again, 10 to 30 seconds, get some fresh air, get some natural daylight so your body can produce the vitamin D that it needs. These things kind of seem small and inconsequential, but they really do add up when you make it just kind of part of your daily life. And eventually they can make, huge shifts in your overall workplace wellness. It's also important to remember that, nobody is an island. We're all in this together. We say this every time we have our addresses with the governor, we're in this together, we'll get through this also together. And, by checking in on one another and asking for help when we need it, and then providing help when we can offer it. So there are some great mental exercises that you can implement while you're actually on the clock. You know, you can catch yourself when you're in those what I call the what if thought cycles. And, you know, keeping anxiety is really conscribed to actual threats, what's actually going on right now. Stress, fear, worry are inevitable right now. But it's really important to keep these anxieties in check and trying to keep them a little bit more grounded. This also means not overgeneralizing these fears and anxieties, because then they can become kind of ominous and therefore like kind of seemingly unbeatable. And you know, giving yourself and each other as much positive self-talk as you can, you know, whether it's big or small. These phrases and sentiments, you know, they carry a certain energy to them and a certain tone. And eventually, you know, they make their way and influence our conscious and subconscious thoughts and attitudes. I love the serenity prayer. It's one of my favorite things. I think it's especially great for healthcare workers that, you know, accept what you can't change, change what you can, know the difference. You know, that discerning ability is so important. And then, you know, certain mindfulness activities at work, you know, staying here and now instead of, you know, if worrying if a patient or someone who's receiving care from you will have XYZ happen to them, you know, focus on what you can do right now, here and now. What your tasks are right now. You know, it's always fine. It's important to be mindful of the future, but it does not really do well to dwell there or in the past, because neither exist. Moving, speaking, and working mindfully. This is also incredibly important, you know, being present and conscious in your movements and in your words. So speaking slowly and intentionally. This can also be very helpful for those in your care too, because if you can present yourself in kind of a slow, mediated way, they are more likely to be receptive to the care you're trying to offer them, especially if you're trying to give them any recommendations or guidelines and that sort of thing. You know, check in with your breath. Are you chest breathing or belly breathing throughout the day? Even just taking 5 seconds to stop and take a really deep breath in with your belly can kind of reset that stress response to bring you kind of more into a balanced state. Checking in with your posture as often as you can. You know, are you hunching forward with what they call the turtle head posture while you're on your phone? Are your shoulders back and down, or are you wearing shoulder earrings? If you are standing, you know, are you in what we call a sway back, when your hips are kind of jutted out? Are your knees locked out, or are they nice and loose? So just doing these little check-ins with yourself. Is your jaw relaxed, or are you clenching right now? Are your brows furrowed, or are they not? That's always my thing. I'm always guilty of having furrowed brows. That's why I've had 2 wrinkles here since I was 20. And then some self-acupressure, which we're going to get obviously more into to acupuncture in a minute. But one of my favorite things to do when I find myself really, really stressing out, this is something I actually learned from a friend of Justin's, she's one of my favorite people. I really love her. But you're going to take your 3 fingers. You're going to, with your ring finger, kind of go just about 1/2 inch or so above the inner border of your eyebrow. And 1, 2, 3. And just kind of taking 10 seconds to just apply the slightest amount of pressure there and close your eyes and breathe. These little centers here are all meant to kind of just relax the mind and body, again, bringing in that more parasympathetic relaxation aspect of your nervous system, so you're a little bit more balanced and aligned. Also, they always say that 2:30 crash, when you're having midday and you're starting to feel a little bit sleepy again. There's an acupuncture point that's really great just to massage, or you can thump on it or tap on it, whatever you want. But you find the inner border of your collarbone, and then you're going to go down just about 1 inch into the first rib space. So it should feel kind of like a little squishy depression, may feel a little tender. This is a great spot to kind of massage on, or again, or thump on if you kind of need to give yourself a little boost of energy. The function of that acupuncture point is to kind of lift and raise your energy. All right. Now kind of moving on to self-care off the clock when you're at home. So again, a lot of this will probably sound familiar or repetitive. But it's just when we're kind of in this thick of this constant fight or flight, we forget the basics. So it's not a bad idea to put these on little Post-its, place them around your house or around your workplace. I have a little, on my nightstand, I have a little Post-it. So the first thing I see in the morning is these little reminders like, don't jump to your phone right away. Take you a few minutes to wake up before you grab the phone and see what's going on Twitter or checking your email. having good, eat well, move daily, sleep soundly. That's my mantra. Making sure that you're really sticking to hearty and nourishing foods as much as you can, vegetables, fruits, and legumes. 15 to 20 minutes of movement per day. Healthcare workers and caregivers are on your feet a lot, so don't stress out too much about the kind of movement that you're doing. It can absolutely be something more mellow, like yoga, Tai Chi, or Qigong. I will make a quick little plug for Tai Chi at the Traeger Institute. Tai Chi program is awesome. It's virtual, it's from home. Chris is a fantastic teacher, and I especially like the wellness exercises. And I'm sorry about our dog. She doesn't like the mailman, like most dogs. Healthy rest, again, can be difficult to do, but we get so much restoration during sleep time. And there are ways to kind of come down from a stressful day to get deep rest. So certain breathing exercises. Another exercise, which some of you here, I know I've already gone over this with in previous presentations, but progressive muscle relaxation is really great. It's something that you can Google, or if you like, you can go to our website, which I'll share at the end. We have tons of free forms and handouts for downloading with all types of kind of stress management, breathing exercises, a little bit of at-home Qigong, and then the progressive muscle relaxation is my absolute favorite. And then big one, do not guilt yourself when you are resting or when you have time to rest. I've seen a lot of really funny memes where it's like, you finally carve out some time to dedicate to yourself to rest and replenish. And then your brain, your ego immediately starts making you feel bad. Like, you've got to be doing something else. You shouldn't be resting right now. And then you spend all that time resting, feeling guilty about it. And then you don't really get to reap the benefits of the rest. So when you do have time to dedicate to self-care, don't allow guilt in your presence at all. Tell that to go away. And it's a good time to always check in on your pillow as well, which seems, again, kind of silly, but again, when we need that restoration during sleep time, having a good pillow is really important. Make sure it has, it's comfortable for your sleeping posture, that your neck's not arched back, that it's not arched forward, that you have that nice kind of little gentle tuck in your chin, so you've got nice alignment. And then my favorite thing is just, kind of getting a morning routine. Again, that only takes a minute or so. Resist jumping straight to your phone or to technology right when your alarm goes off. Allow yourself to wake up in phases. I like to wiggle my toes and fingers, and then I'll kind of roll my wrists and ankles, do some stretching, stretch your hips, do some, nice neck stretching, introducing gentle movement just for about 2 minutes or so before getting out of bed. And then journaling, again, which may seem kind of silly to some people, journaling is a really great way of cultivating mindfulness and reframing conscious and subconscious thought patterns and perceptions. It only takes a few minutes to do, twice a day, but the benefits can be huge once you kind of get it part of your habit, part of your daily regimen. So in the morning, just take a few minutes while you're drinking your coffee or tea or smoothie or breakfast or whatever it is. Write down 3 things that you're hopeful about the day, 3 things that you're going to accomplish, big or small. It can be something as simple as I'm going to brush my teeth at lunch today. Or it can be something large, like I'm going to remember to check in on my posture today. And then 3 things that you're not going to let get to you. And then in the evening, again, before you go to bed, after dinner, when you're a little bit more kind of rested, not immediately after work, 3 good things that happen that day. 3 maybe not so great things that you just need to let go of and not let stew overnight. And then 3 things that you're grateful for. Just kind of putting these things onto paper and seeing them, with your eyes, it kind of reframes your conscious thoughts, which eventually will kind of reframe like those thought patterns, maybe the ones that we can't control as much. And then again, activities, yoga, especially restorative yoga. There are tons of free restorative yoga videos on YouTube to look at. Restorative yoga is not hard. It's meant to be basically taking a nap with props for about 30 minutes or so. Again, Tai Chi, Qigong are both fantastic. Trying to dabble in meditation a little bit, whether that just means trying to use an app. You know, there's the Calm app, there's something called Insight Timer, which has tons of free guided meditations, or it can just be sitting, you know, in the dark, staring at a candle, is kind of giving like one single focal point to focus on and breathe. And then those other exercises that we talked about. And then lastly, I can't emphasize the importance of therapy enough. I mean, if I had it my way, if I was the queen of the world, everyone would have therapy. You know, it's especially important, especially again for our frontline workers and caregivers right now. So Project Parachute is something I learned about from a physician in New York City, and this is national, so it's for anybody in the United States. It is pro bono therapy, both in an individual and group setting for frontline workers dealing with COVID-related stress. So any person who's working in a face-to-face healthcare setting where there is direct care for somebody with COVID, healthcare workers, administrative staff, cleaners, cafeteria workers, anybody who's working in a COVID environment. Any physicians, nurses, support staff working in a face-to-face public health setting, whether it's promoting screening, testing, or caring for those in recovery from COVID. And then those providing their own mental health services to the front line as part of their job. These are people that are all eligible for free therapy. You just go to projectparachute.org and you fill out a small application, and then they will set you up with a therapist in your region. And you can get either pro bono or severely discounted therapy. And I just think it's really important for everyone to utilize all of their all the resources possible. I think it's really great that they're doing this. So that's about all I have, and I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Colby just to kind of get into a little bit more about how acupuncture can specifically help out during these times. So I am going to mute myself and hand things over to you.
All right. So on the acupuncture side of things, one thing I want to kind of mention before we kind of get into some of these slides is in Chinese medicine, there's this idea of treating the parent to treat the child. And that's something we use a lot kind of in the Chinese medicine pediatrics sort of focus. It's also a strategy that we use just when treating different body systems and kind of how they're related to each other based on kind of the systems of Chinese medicine. But the idea is that the child is getting much of their nourishment, nutritional nourishment, physical nourishment, emotional, spiritual nourishment, actually from the parent. So they need to be free of disease and as healthy as possible in order for the child to benefit and thrive. And so the same principle really applies to healthcare workers and caregivers. So we really need to keep them as strong and focused and healthy as possible. So that's really built right into the kind of the philosophy of acupuncture and kind of how we approach treating caregivers and healthcare workers. So balancing the stress response is key in dealing with kind of what we're seeing with frontline workers, really anyone who's been working this whole time. So acupuncture works to improve the stress response by balancing the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So fight or flight versus rest and digest, we want them to be, you know, as harmonized as possible. When they're working in harmony, we get the right sort of hormonal balance so that we can actually make proper decisions in kind of the stressful situations, but then actually get restful time when kind of everything's toned down. What's happening with a lot of people is that fight or flight response is just on all the time. And that's very draining. So we need to be able to kind of shut that off and have the body kind of respond appropriately when that's necessary, but then be able to kind of phase out of that so that we can actually replenish and rejuvenate. Now, there are different types of stress that affect the body in different ways. So like worry is different from frustration, fear and anxiety. They affect the body in different ways. And so acupuncture kind of looks at how these different types of stress attack the body in different ways, and which systems and kind of what symptoms you expect to have if you are sort of overburdened with worry versus like feeling very fearful. And so really it's about targeting those and then overall just making the body more resilient to stress. And one way you can kind of think about this is sort of supporting the immune system, but also like the emotional immune system, being able to block out all of that outside stuff trying to get in and sort of mess with the physical body. So additional benefits of acupuncture, increasing the parasympathetic and vagal tone and working to manage pain. So a lot of people's pain is made worse by stress. And then you get stress from having that pain. So it's a vicious cycle that we try to break with aggressive acupuncture. Also helping with gut motility and other digestive functions. Obviously stress can give you an upset stomach, and you feel that type of stress in your gut a lot of times. Sleep is a big issue. Stress will obviously mess with your sleep and ability to become restful and replenish energy. So we're working to improve your sleep cycles, regulate kind of your light and dark, night and day cycles, balancing the mood and alleviating depression and anxiety. Those are obviously the big ones. But improving focus, cognitive awareness, alertness, improving awareness of your body, kind of your own ability to kind of self-diagnose and self-check in and feel your thoughts, emotions, any symptoms you might have, so that you can sort of categorize them and relay them, and we can, focus in on those and work on those things. Improving circulation, that's kind of the main crux of acupuncture therapy. But then like just bolstering the immune system in general, which obviously we want to be as strong as possible to avoid not just COVID infections, but you don't want to get sick with a cold or flu at this time either. And then, like I said, just kind of strengthening sort of like the emotional immune system, being more resilient to that stress. So this is actually perfect for healthcare workers because acupuncture training is unique in that we get obviously all of the traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture stuff, but almost every acupuncture training program in the country will have some level, and usually it's quite robust in training Western medicine type of coursework. So we get conventional medicine classes on anatomy and physiology, general and systemic pathology, differential diagnosis, internal medicine, nutrition, some pharmacology. So basically very similar to what you would get in like a PA program, or I had classmates that were nurses, and they said this is the Western medicine side of things is basically like what nursing school was like. So it's not comprehensive the way people that are actually like working in hospitals have that med school training, but it's enough to be able to speak that language and understand when healthcare workers are discussing both their job but also how they're feeling, being able to meet on that level. And so I think that really helps for the confidence of healthcare workers seeking acupuncture treatment, because they see there's an understanding and there's the ability to communicate. But the other cool thing is a lot of times when I see healthcare workers, sometimes they're so burned out with shop talk that they actually really enjoy and appreciate when we go down the rabbit hole of traditional Chinese medicine terminology and kind of diagnosing things on that side of things. So it's a good balance. And I think healthcare workers are very receptive to this. So long-term complications. So obviously we're all hoping and waiting for when we have vaccines and treatments that we can really conquer COVID and not have it affect our work life and our life in general. But we're going to have a bunch of patients kind of, and we have them now, but after COVID is not an imminent threat, we're still going to have kind of recovered patients that are still having the long-term effects of COVID. And so conventional care may need to continue to focus on sort of active infections and people in emergency situations, while people that have kind of these long-term lasting effects, these sort of like lingering, long-standing illnesses related to COVID, that's something that acupuncturists can work to sort of take the burden off of the emergency care situation. So acupuncture really excels at treating chronic and stubborn conditions. So I imagine that it will definitely have a role in dealing with, and I've heard it actually called like long COVID, like you're no longer testing positive, but a myriad of symptoms, from the breathing issues to the cardiac issues, cognitive type things that we're seeing. And it seems to be kind of, for a lot of otherwise healthy people that contract COVID, no rhyme or reason to it. And obviously we'll know more as we're able to kind of study more patients, but this is definitely a place where acupuncturists can sort of slot in and sort of examine some of these unusual symptoms that sort of crop out of nowhere. That's a place where Chinese medicine is actually really good at at even, if we can't find an exact diagnosis for what's going on, we can typically address it, symptomatically. One thing that's also kind of going on, kind of going back to the stress and anxiety and depression aspect of it throughout all of this, whether it's people who have had these infections and actually illness from COVID, or people working on COVID patients, or even, people that have been furloughed and sitting at home for, we're in September now, and it feels like it's still March, April. There's sort of been this inability for us to make new memories because nothing's changed. We've been on lockdown. We've been quarantined. Maybe you're able to go to work, or you're working from home, and kind of really the only things that have changed is the temperature outside and whether the kids are in school or not. We're starting to get a couple, like sports are back, so that's kind of a marker. But with this sort of the sameness that's been going on for months and months and months, it's easy to get into a depressive state, to feel stuck. And that's very much a way that we describe kind of physical and emotional depression in Chinese medicine. So it's producing a set of symptoms that we actually expect to see when that type of kind of emotional state and kind of like long-term living state is. So again, that's another way that that acupuncture kind of has that built into something we're looking for and able to treat. Now, we've been back at it for a couple months in terms of treating people. So the safety protocols, in terms of extra COVID protocols, I think we've kind of worked all that out now. We had to close for a couple months, sort of at the beginning when everything shut down. And as we slowly reopened, we were writing our COVID safety protocols and everything for our acupuncture office, and sort of forming kind of the basis of what acupuncturists across Kentucky were using as their COVID safety protocols. The nice thing is that a lot of what we're doing is sort of built into how a normal acupuncture treatment would work. There's robust cleaning techniques because really this is viewed traditionally for hundreds of years, even before it came to the United States, technically as a very minor form of surgery. You're inserting a medical instrument into the body. And we don't look at it the same way as inpatient surgery and procedures like that, but there is the ability to introduce a contaminant into the body. So everything we do is always completely sterile. We actually take training on what's called clean needle technique, and basically making sure the needles are clean and the area around where the needle will be inserted and where everything is stored is clean. There's a lot of OSHA training involved. So a lot of these things are sort of built into how we have to treat all patients anyway, just to make sure there's no risk of any sort of infection, whether it's a viral respiratory type infection or if it's a skin infection or something like that. So they really hammer that into us in acupuncture school. So we just build on that for the COVID protocols. So in addition to all of our needling techniques and using sterile single-use disposable needles, we never reuse needles. We are now basically wearing full PPE. So scrubs, lab coats, obviously face masks. In some cases, if I have to work on somebody to where the patient is not wearing a face mask as well, in case we have to do some points around where a face mask would cover, it happens sometimes, then I'll wear the face mask and the plastic face shield, so that you always have at least two barriers between kind of transmission of respiratory droplets and aerosols and things like that. So always, safe barrier between patient and practitioner, frequent hand washing and sanitizing. So anytime you touch anything, it's right to the hand sanitizer before and after patients. Usually, if it's available in your space, washing hands at the sink and really scrubbing in like it's surgery, sort of hand washing. So, washing hands, washing the workspace. And then what we've been doing with kind of the COVID protocols, we're scheduling patients out so we have time between patients in order to just completely do a deep clean of all of the space in the office. So, tearing down the room, washing the hallways and the bathrooms and we've got the waiting area closed, but any place where somebody can breathe and anything can land on the surface, we're wiping that down. So that's kind of like extra COVID stuff we're doing. The nice thing about acupuncture is it's a procedure that you can get all of your diagnostic information with telehealth, or it doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of physical exams. So you can be 6-10 feet apart in the treatment room, so you're able to maintain that distance. The actual only time that you're close to the patient is insertion of needles, and it's fairly rare that I would need to needle anything kind of around the head area. So really, we're talking needling a lot of kind of like hands and wrist and kind of legs and feet, so you're able to actually maintain a lot of distance even during the needling. And then we leave the room, so patients kind of sit and chill with needles in for a little while. So again, we're not in an enclosed space for a prolonged period of time. So really trying to minimize contact as much as possible. Obviously, you need to touch the patient to needle them and to remove needles. But yeah, in any way that we can minimize how much we're basically talking at each other and breathing on each other and that sort of thing. And again, a lot of those sanitization things are sort of built into kind of how we see patients. So yeah, and obviously I think healthcare workers they're used to that level of cleanliness and sterility. So that's another thing I think that all of our patients, but certainly healthcare workers, like really appreciate seeing the efforts that we put into making it as safe as possible. All right, I think that's everything we've got here. Ready for some questions.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I'm sure so much of this has resonated with so many of us, both from the standpoint of how to take care of our emotional and physical health and all of those tips. And I'm glad you talked about the Project Parachute. I didn't know about that. I wonder if so you heard about it, and thank you for sharing that with us. Is it new? It's just focused on COVID, or is it, yeah?
Yeah, so it's very new. It started up, I think, in kind of the late spring. I heard about it from, she's an ER doctor in New York. Her name is Dr. Esther Chu, and she's on the news a lot too. She's kind of become like a healthcare, expert on various news stations and whatnot. But she's the first person that told me about it, because I've messaged back and forth with her a few times about various things. And it started with it's a PhD students. I think it's like their dissertation project.
Oh, yeah.
To come up with something that's appropriate for the here and now. So yeah, so she started this thing called Project Parachute. Yeah, it's very easy to use. I've recommended a lot of my patients who are healthcare workers, frontline workers, to try it out, and they've had really great. There's no group therapy in Kentucky right now. I'm sure that will change at some point if there's enough of a demand for it. But there are several therapists here in Kentucky who can provide telehealth, therapy and mental health services right now, and it's free. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And Colby, it was interesting about the long haulers as it relates to, thinking about how acupuncture can play a role in the recovery of the long haulers. For some of you, read some of the stories of some of these individuals and you think, God, it's gone on for months and months and months. And Christian I don't know if she jumped on here, because we're going to be starting a clinic too at the Traeger Institute with some of our colleagues across the university on long haulers. I don't know if you had heard about that, and I don't know exactly when we're actually going to get that going, but I do know that there's a lot of talk as it relates to that. Christian, did you have something you wanted to say? I think that she turned her camera on. There is a question in the chat, and it's from Samira, and it says, can you provide an example of inflammatory foods?
Yes, so inflammatory foods, it's kind of all the stuff that you would think of that's not great for you. So sugar, caffeine, alcohol. We kind of go, I have a kind of flexitarian diet. So I'll do a little bit of meat when I need it, but red meat's considered, like dark meats, pork as well, are considered kind of inflammatory foods. But the big ones are the sugar, the caffeine, the alcohol. Nuts for some people, it just kind of depends on your allergy and your sensitivity. So nuts can be inflammatory if you do have kind of a sensitivity there. And then all of those lovely, delicious, simple carbs like breads and pastries, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of all the stuff you're supposed to eat in moderation anyways. the idea is that when your body's ingesting them, it kind of like, what I also like to call inflammatory foods, I call them frankenfoods, which I know is like a really cheesy term, but it's just, foods that have gone through like crazy, like artificial processing with, dyes and fillers and, all types of processing. And the idea is that when your body, when it makes its way to your small intestine to actually be like broken down and, the nutrients absorbed and then the waste excreted, your body recognizes the whole thing as like, this isn't food. What am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
And your body into like a sympathetic, so when you're digesting your food, it's actually supposed to be like a parasympathetic activity. That's why it's like the rest and digest. But when you're having these foods that your body really doesn't recognize as nourishment, it almost has a little bit of a panic attack, your digestive system does, and it will throw you into kind of like an inflammatory response.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Joe D'Ambrosio also threw in the chat, dairy. Dairy is also
Dairy time.
Yeah.
Dairy is also considered really phlegmatic too. There's mixed research on it, so it's hard to be able to pinpoint it precisely, but yeah, dairy, it's considered in our medicine to be a phlegmatic, or we call it a damp engendering in food, so it can make you like stuffy and puffy. You get that like bloating and IBS type symptoms. So just as kind of like a fun fact, so I know I'm a big tea and coffee person, and so getting dairy out of my morning drink was actually really hard because I couldn't find anything that I thought actually mixed well with coffee and tea. I thought almond, soy, coconut, rice milk, I thought it all made it really bitter. And I just discovered oat milk probably 4 or 5 months ago, and oh my gosh, if you're looking for a dairy alternative to mix in with dark teas like pu'er, black tea or coffee, the oat milk is like, it's divine. So
yeah, I've gotten into oat milk too because of your recommendation. So yeah, maybe what you could do is you could turn off the screen, stop the sharing so we can see everyone. And we're a small group. I'm wondering if folks might want to turn on their cameras and just go on and ask their questions and not use the chat since we're a small enough group. Is there folks, any questions for Andrea or Colby regarding any of the information that they have imparted to us? Does anybody think that they might be able to engage in some of the activities and some of the things that we can do as it relates to journaling or being mindful in our movement, in our talking, in our presence? I think you were also talking about making sure we get our vitamin D and belly breathing. And so anybody's committed to those types of things or think they can add one of those things into their life?
This is Dr. Joe, and I would like to answer your question, Pam, and that is my schedule's too full to do any of this.
I know,
so I'm
Joe
sitting here, I'm listening to Andrea and Colby. I'm getting more stressed because of the fact that there's no time available in the day to even take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what do we do to reorient ourselves to a more natural life?
So yeah, so I can totally empathize with that. My day yesterday was, I've really tried to limit myself on how many patients I'm seeing in a day right now, just because, I mean, even though like the extra cleaning that we're doing right now, it doesn't take too much extra time. And like wearing the mask and the scrubs doesn't really affect me at work too much. It was a little bit weird to breathe at first for like the first day, and then you get used to it and it's fine. But yesterday, like I doubled the amount of patients I normally see, which was a huge mistake because I was completely zonked out by the time I got home. But the biggest thing, I mean, even with like a double patient load, as I'm walking up to the room about to begin the treatment session, one breath, one deep breath, just to kind of give yourself, 1 second to kind of again, like try to turn on that parasympathetic side. And then obviously, hopefully you're not working 24 hours in a day, Dr. Joe, otherwise we're going to have a serious conversation about your self-care. But just,
I'm enjoying that conversation too.
But when you're done with the day, and this is so hard for caregivers because it's so hard for us to turn off that caregiving mode. But when the day is done, the day is done. And I have a pretty good relationship with most of my patients. Most of them have my cell phone just because sometimes that's easier to get in touch with me to schedule or ask a question. But if they text me at 9 o'clock at night, they know, like, that's fine to text me at that late at night, but I'm not getting back to them until the next morning. And boundary setting, I know it's so hard right now when we just want to fix the world. But making sure that that boundary setting is not only helpful for you, but that is helpful for your patients as well. Because if you don't set proper boundaries and be firm with them, you're going to burn yourself out, and then you're no longer going to be able to provide for your patients anymore because you're going to be spent. So for caregivers, it can kind of help us to reframe it from that perspective, where it's not just about taking care of us, but it's like we need to take care of ourselves so we can continue, caring for those in our charge.
We also have a question in the chat. Is acupuncture multi-session or a single visit, or does it depend on the problem?
So it does depend on the problem. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'd want everybody to make acupuncture part of like a general healthcare regimen, but not to the same degree that maybe going to a chiropractor where they're like, yeah, you need to come in 2 or 3 times per week, and then, every other week, but then, so it's not quite as frequent. Usually people will start off, coming in maybe once a week at the most, maybe every other week to start, and the sessions kind of build on each other. So the longer that you're incorporating it into your life, the more longer lasting and significant the results will be. Ideally, once you get to a point where maybe kind of like the main condition we're working on has kind of, sorted itself out, acupuncture is still a preventative medicine. Prevention is the best medicine, and prophylactic care is important. So even after that initial, maybe those initial health problems have become, more manageable or to a point where they're just not, influencing your daily life as much. We look at acupuncture as kind of like an oil change for your car. You don't wait for your car to break down, hopefully, before you go take it for an oil change and a tune-up. You just kind of do it, ideally every 3 months. So it's kind of the same for acupuncture. We really try to encourage our patients, after your frozen shoulder has gotten better, to just come in when the seasons change, just to get a little tune-up. So ideally, it's something everyone incorporates in regularly, but not super, close together appointments forever. Usually you only need to do that for the first phase of care.
We have another comment. Maybe Ann Wildman. Justin, could you unmute Ann Wildman so she might be able to go on and ask her question or a comment? I think she actually has a comment in the, let's see. Ann.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, everybody. So this is just a comment, really. I like the Calm app. If you are familiar with the Calm app, it's great to have an app on your phone. It's convenient, and the Calm app has what they call the daily Calm. It's a 10-minute mindfulness exercise, and I try to do that every day, and it's a really, really great way to relax and be in tune with what's going on with your body and the breathing and everything else. It's really, really wonderful, and it's helped me a lot.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you so much. Looks like someone else, Samir, says that Calm app is great. See, there's another fan in there. So Andrea and Colby, can you also tell us how folks can get in touch with you? Like if folks want to go on and try out acupuncture, what's the best way of actually getting in touch with you?
So we do have our regular clinic out in Middletown, but we are at the Traeger Institute twice a week. And we would love to see you at the Traeger Institute. We're there on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we have appointment times at 1 o'clock, 2:15, 3:30, and 4:45 every Tuesday and Thursday. And if you just go to traegerinstitute.org and then /acupuncture, that has all of the information about us and how to schedule. And I know Molly's been, she's the best. I absolutely, I love her. She's doing a fantastic job helping us with the management side for scheduling appointments at the Traeger Institute. And I think Colby's put both of those links in the chat. Yeah.
Yes.
For scheduling either with us or at the Traeger Institute.
So it really just depends on your schedule and let the patient or client's schedule, as well as location. What's their preferences or location? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'm at the clinic in Middletown on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then at the Traeger Institute on Tuesdays, and then Colby is at the Traeger Institute on Thursdays, and then once those times start to fill up, we'll hopefully be at the Traeger Institute a little bit more.
That's great. I think, and Mona also wanted to just let everybody know that there's a microclinic class, which is 10 weeks of learning and practicing all of this. Yay! So she wants to let folks know to go on and check out the Traeger Institute for classes about our training that's going to begin at the end of September. If anybody's interested in becoming a facilitator, you can contact Ramona Huff. So it's actually in the actual chat. It's rjhuff01@louisville.edu. And there's 2 days of training that are free. Let's see if there's anything else that I may have missed in the app. And if anybody has any, Joe also put a link for foods that can boost the immune system. And I think Samira may have said something. Yeah, Samira said she wanted everybody to know that there'll be a free COVID testing at Bates Memorial Church at 620 Lambton Street from 9 to 3 this Saturday on the 19th. Let's see, is there anything? I also wanted everybody to know that our marketing department always takes the tapings of these COVID-19 sessions and they put it on our website. So there's a long list of the last 23 and this one will be included. So I was actually taking some screenshots of some of the actual slides that you had on your PowerPoint so I can print them out and put them in my bathroom and next to my bed and things like that. So folks, you also maybe will also, if you guys are comfortable with that, we'll also maybe post the PDF of your PowerPoint so that folks might be able to just take pictures of those, because I know you indicated that it'd be a good idea to maybe take Post-it notes and put them around just as little reminders and those types of things. And John Crocker, who is our marketing team extraordinaire, marketing intern now turned employee, who will be leaving Traeger soon. He actually put in the chat that there's a place where you can go and get access to the COVID-19 sessions. So we have a few more minutes. We probably could take another question if anybody had a question for the Heltons or for Dr. Christian Furman. Anybody have any additional questions or comments? How many of you guys know someone who's ever had acupuncture? Raise your hand. That's right. My daughter actually just saw Andrea and has had some great impact and outcomes because of it. So, and she'd be okay with me saying that. She loves Andrea. Anybody have any other additional question or comment for the group? It says, let's see. Samir also said, I've gone to Meridian for acupuncture and loved it. All right.
Yeah, Meridian's great. Patrick and Karen are good friends of ours. Yeah, they're a crack up. I love them.
Very good. All right. All right, guys. Well, maybe we can take the last 2 minutes and actually use some of the tips that Andrea gave us before we start our 11 o'clock next Zoom meeting for probably what most of us have. So we thank you so much for caring about us and giving us some great tips for our emotional and physical well-being. And I hope that all of you have an opportunity to consider acupuncture in your space. And if not, at least do some of the tips that they have shared. Thank you again so much, Andrea and Colby, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Furman, for the update. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Remember, belly breathe, vitamin D. What was a few other things? Oh, tapping. As we leave, can you tap us? Can you show us? There we go.
And then posture. Posture.
Posture. All right.
Computer, but get that little chin tucked. No shoulder earrings. Shoulders.
I love the shoulder earrings. All right. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you. Bye-bye.